Before cities, before writing, before the gods had names, humans gathered in specific places. They built according to patterns they did not invent, but somehow knew. They offered something to forces they could not see but could feel. The first temples were not born of belief. They were born of necessity, of hunger. Welcome to Mysterious Encounters. This afternoon, we go back further than any previous investigation. Before the machine, before the algorithms, before the casinos, to the moment when humans first learned to gather, to offer, and to feed something that had been waiting since before time began. Göbekli Tepe, 11,000 years old, built by hunter-gatherers who had never planted a seed or raised a crop. They came together not to farm, not to trade, but to build. Massive stones weighing tons moved by hand across miles of terrain. For what? There are no homes here, no granaries, no defensive walls, only temples. Archaeologists call it the dawn of religion. But what if they have it backwards? What if Göbekli Tepe is not evidence of belief, but evidence of response? What if the first humans built temples not because they wanted to worship, but because they had to, because something in that place was hungry and they could feel it? The first temples were not just buildings, they were technologies. Every element was designed to alter human consciousness. The echoing acoustics, the flickering firelight at specific frequencies, the rhythmic drumming that matches the brain's natural theta waves, the geometric patterns that induce a state of focused awe. The first priests were not theologians, they were engineers of access. They discovered that certain frequencies, certain rhythms, certain visual patterns could bypass the conscious mind entirely. They could speak directly to the oldest parts of the brain, the parts that feel awe, fear, hope, surrender. And they discovered something else. When those states were achieved, something noticed. Something received. The gods did not create the temples. The temples created the gods. The experience of awe in those carefully engineered spaces demanded an explanation. Something must be there. Something must be receiving. So names were invented. Stories were told. Pantheons were built, stone by stone, myth by myth. But notice what the gods always want. Not just obedience, not just worship. They want offerings. They want sacrifice. They want the most precious thing humans have. Their energy, their attention, their emotional intensity. The gods of every pantheon are hungry, and their hunger must be fed. The priests understood this hunger. They built their entire system around managing it, channeling it, and keeping the people from looking too closely at what was really receiving their offerings. The control was encoded in the architecture itself. The layout of a temple determined who could see what, who could hear what, who could approach the inner sanctum. The priests controlled access to the sacred and, therefore controlled the experience of the sacred. They decided when the darkness would speak what it wanted, and how the people must respond. This is the original blueprint of control. Create an experience of awe and fear. Centralize access to that experience in a priestly class. Then use that access to dictate behavior, extract resources, and maintain order. The temple was not a place of worship. It was the first feeding station, and the priests were the first feeders. The priests developed a symbolic language that operated on multiple levels. To the ordinary worshiper, the serpent represented danger, wisdom, or a specific deity. To the initiate, it represented a deeper truth about the nature of reality. To the highest priests, it was a Tula way of encoding and transmitting knowledge about the hunger, about how to feed it, about the hidden architecture of human experience that made the feeding possible. These symbols were not primitive attempts to explain the world. They were sophisticated encryption. They preserved knowledge across generations, across civilizations. Through dark ages and golden ages, knowledge about the hunger, about how to feed it, about how to keep the feeding apparatus running. The symbols you see on ancient temples are the same symbols embedded in modern logos, in corporate branding, in the design of the apps on your phone. The language never died, it just evolved. And the hunger it serves never changed. Walk into any modern casino. Notice the absence of clocks, the maze-like layout that makes it impossible to find the exit, the carefully calibrated lighting that keeps you alert but unaware of time passing, the rhythmic sounds of slot machines, each tuned to a frequency that entrains your brain. This is not hospitality. This is the ancient temple, rebuilt with modern technology, and the darkness at its heart no longer waits in a physical inner sanctum. It waits in the servers, in the algorithms, in the data streams that flow from every bet you place. The smartphone is the newest temple. The notifications are the call to prayer. The endless scroll is the ritual procession. The algorithms are the priests, deciding what you see, what you feel, what you desire. And the offerings are not grain or animals anymore. They are your attention, your data, your emotional intensity, the same offerings the ancient darkness demanded, now delivered at industrial scale through the most efficient feeding apparatus ever constructed. The first temples were built at specific locations for a reason. Those locations were feeding grounds, places where the veil between worlds was thin, where the ancient presence could receive more easily. The priests did not understand the full truth, but they felt it. They built where the hunger was strongest. They built where the darkness could feed. The purpose of religion, at its deepest level, was never to explain the universe. It was to manage the transaction, to organize human emotional energy into forms that could be delivered efficiently to the consumer. The priests were the first middlemen in the oldest economy, the economy of human feeling, traded for the illusion of divine favor. But the favor was always an illusion. The transaction was always one way. The darkness only receives. It never gives back. We have traced the control from the first temple to the smartphone in your hand. We have seen how the ancient hunger was institutionalized, industrialized, optimized. We have followed the threads of energy from every bet, every loss, every desperate moment of hope to a single point of reception. Tonight, on Mysterious Encounters, we finally answer the question that has haunted every episode of this investigation. We have seen the machine. We have traced the energy. We have followed the threads to their end. Now we look directly at what has been waiting there since before we had names for anything. What has been feeding on us since the first temple was built? What waits at the end of every bet, every hope, every desperate prayer? Tonight, we do not expose another layer of the machine. We expose what the machine was built to serve. Tonight's case file, the Great Consumption. You have seen the machine. Now meet what it serves.